What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we're going to be covering a bunch of stuff. As usual, our Week 7 waiver wire pickups, but on the forefront, some huge, very exciting news, something we've been working on for a long time. We have officially gone live on our very own ADP website. Check it out in the description, adpfantasy.com. If you guys have been enjoying the content here for a while and you've been clicking the like, subscribe button, greatly appreciated. But go ahead, do yourself a favor, check out the new website, a great way to stay connected with some exclusive content via newsletters, via memberships, more information in the details. So check that out. And now let's get right into it. All right, so as usual, we kick things off at the quarterback position where there are some great streaming options, and we begin with Jimmy Garoppolo, who is on this list for a second straight week, and this time with good reason yet again, because look, last week, tough matchup versus the LA Rams. Maybe some people didn't want to go ahead, take a chance, somewhat understandable. He finished with 243 yards, 1 interception, but also did add a rushing touchdown. But oh man, this Week 7 matchup versus the Washington Redskins is a great one. Even though the Redskins were victorious last week, it was versus the Dolphins. They're going through a lot of change right now, and look for the 49ers to take advantage of this Redskins squad, and Jimmy Garoppolo should be one of the big reasons why the 49ers come out on top in this contest, where I see the 49ers putting up a bunch of points. Next, we have got Gardner Minshew of the Jaguars, who a lot of people went ahead and fired up as an addition last week. But guess what? That New Orleans Saints matchup is a big reason why we didn't highlight his name last week. Only went for 163 yards and an interception. Stout defense there, somewhat expected. But guess what? If a lot of people went ahead and kind of left him on the waiver wires last week, now's the perfect time to go ahead and pick him up because he has a Week 7 matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals, a defense that has been getting torched week in, week out, one of the worst units in the NFL, and that doesn't look to change anytime soon. I believe that the Jaguars are going to have a huge bounce back performance through the air, on the ground, however you want. But more importantly, Minshew Mania will go ahead and return in Week 7. Next, we have got Daniel Jones of the Giants, who again was one of these young quarterbacks that struggled last week but should have a bounce back performance in Week 7. Jones went for 161 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions versus one of the best defenses in the NFL in the New England Patriots. And also keep in mind, he was pretty much without any of his weapons. But guess what fixes all those woes? It is a matchup versus that Arizona Cardinals defense that, again, is a plus matchup for all opposing quarterbacks. The early expectation is guys like Evan Ingram, possibly Sterling Shepard, heck, maybe even Saquon Barkley could all return and provide much needed help to that offense, but more importantly, some support for Daniel Jones so that he can go ahead and return to pace in terms of being a top 10 streaming fantasy quarterback. Our fourth and final quarterback is Josh Allen of the Bills, who coming off the bye week, maybe a lot of people went ahead and dropped, but guess what? He returns in Week 7 with a beautiful matchup versus the Miami Dolphins, who just made Case Keenum look like a somewhat viable option, and Josh Allen has a lot more pieces around him. I like for him to have a huge day rushing the football and possibly some success through the air as well to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback for Week 7. Moving on, we get to our running backs where we start with Jamaal Williams, who versus the Detroit Lions on a night where Aaron Jones struggled and kind of fell out of favor with the Green Bay Packers offense, Jamaal Williams took every opportunity and ran with it because even though he was coming off a concussion and even though Aaron Jones was coming off the game of his life, guess what? LaFleur stayed true to his word and they're going to be riding the hot hand in Green Bay. Even though Aaron Jones might be the more well-rounded running back, it sure looks like a running back by committee or a 50-50 split, something close to that. Maybe it was a once-in-a-game type of performance, but this late in the season, look, you go ahead, you take a flyer on a running back that could potentially be a week-to-week flex starting option, which Jamaal Williams could potentially be for the entirety of this remaining season. Next, we have got Benny Snell of the Steelers, and even though Pittsburgh is on a bye week in Week 7, Snell is an intriguing ad candidate because of several reasons. First and foremost, Jalen Samuels still going to be out for several weeks. James Conner got nicked up in that game versus the Chargers, and it's pretty apparent that the game plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward will be to utilize the rushing attack. They've got a good offensive line. There's going to be a lot of dinks and dumps to the running backs, and Benny Snell looked like that next guy up after James Conner. He had 17 rush attempts for 75 yards. He made good on the opportunity he was given. Now, the James Conner injury, look, maybe if the Steelers were playing in Week 7, Benny Snell would be the top name to add, but the expectation is that James Conner probably will return by Week 8. Nonetheless, we have seen James Conner get nicked up before, and if that's the case, Benny Snell is a name, especially if you're a James Conner owner, that you want to go ahead and pay some attention to. Our third and final running back name is Darrell Henderson of the Rams. And this is more so of a situation, again, for all Todd Gurley owners. The day finally came where Gurley missed a week. Now, this was more so to a non-related arthritic knee problem, but nonetheless, he missed his game, and a lot of people expected Malcolm Brown to run away with that backup position as he kind of had some early season success. But guess what? Darrell Henderson in Week 6 had more success, looked more explosive than Malcolm Brown. And that backup running back position, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Rams just go with the guy that is more impressive. And as of late, at least this last week, it was Darrell Henderson. So with his availability in leagues, I'd go ahead and take a flyer out on him, stash him, see what happens with Gurley moving forward, see what happens with Malcolm Brown and the favor he has with that coaching staff, and possibly Darrell Henderson might emerge as a guy that now is the RB2 behind Todd Gurley. Continue on to our wide receivers. We start with a pair of New York Jets in Robby Anderson and Jamison Crowder, who this last week went for 5 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown, and then 6 receptions for 98 yards, respectively. And with Sam Darnold back in the mix, all of a sudden, both these guys may be viable flex options at the wide receiver position. And it's very likely that one, if not both, are still available on waivers, because up until now, it was the Luke Falk show. And obviously, with Sam Darnold in the mix, returning, he is a much better quarterback. There's a reason he's the starter. There's a reason he was an early round pick last year. This Jets offense looks incredibly better with him, as you'd think. And Jamison Crowder, more of that PPR addition. Robby Anderson, maybe more of that big home run threat. Both these guys, viable ads in Week 7 if you need help at the wide receiver position. Next, we go to Phillip Dorsett of the Patriots, who is expected to return in Week 7. A guy that was dropped in a lot of leagues because of injury, but a favorable matchup versus the New York Jets and being on that explosive New England Patriots offense might mean he is worth a flyer in terms of a boom or bust wide receiver target. Our last wide receiver is Jaron Brown of the Seahawks, who this last week, 3 receptions for 29 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I do keep in mind that a lot of people probably will be chasing the points here. But the reason we kind of bring up his name is more so because of the Will Disley injury that's expected to be a season ender. And Jaron Brown, with that big body frame, could be a potential target that replaces Will Disley's production, especially in the red zone. So if you're needing someone like that, some red zone big body target at the wide receiver position, especially in standard leagues, he might not be a bad name to keep your eye out on. Next, getting to our tight ends, we start with Hunter Henry, who, if available, is the must-add name on your waiver wires, no matter the position, but even more so because it's at tight end. Kind of low-key, the news came out early these last few days that Hunter Henry might suit up. So if he wasn't picked up before the start of your Chargers game, week 7, there will be a mad free-for-all for Hunter Henry. Obviously, he might have been kept in a lot of leagues if you had an IR spot, but if not, he might have been dropped and could possibly still be on your waiver wires. He went for 8 receptions for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He sure looks like one of the best receiving targets on that offense for the Chargers, a guy that justified his round 5, round 6 drafting position. And now, with him supposedly being back healthy, he is going to be potentially a tight end 1 for the remainder of the season. Next, we've got Ricky Seals-Jones of the Browns, who this last week went for 3 receptions, 47 yards, and a touchdown. And probably not going to be a mad scramble to add Seals-Jones, considering the Browns are on a bye this week. But when they return, it sure seems like after the David Njoku injury and the spot it opened up for that next tight end to kind of come in and take advantage of that Seals-Jones is that guy. For the last couple of weeks, he's had some success. Even though he might be a flyer considering the ups and downs of this Browns offense, he'd be a guy that's worth it at the tight end position. Next, we've got Dawson Knox of the Bills, who was on some people's radar a couple of weeks ago, but then the Bills go on a bye week. He's probably dropped by a lot of owners. But guess what? The Bills are returning this week, and they face the Miami Dolphins, which means every single weapon offensively is viable and could have a career game. And with all these other tight ends that you probably start on a week-to-week basis, maybe some of them have been disappointing, some of them going on bye weeks. Well, Dawson Knox could be that guy with the plus matchup. Could get you a single touchdown, but that is all you want when it comes to streaming tight ends, and you don't have a better opportunity to do so than facing the Miami Dolphins. Our fourth and final tight end is Luke Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks, and again, this is 100% because of the Will Disley injury. Achilles out for the year, and just because of circumstances, Luke Wilson is pretty much the only remaining tight end for the Seahawks, especially after the Nick Vannett trade. But he knows that system. He has been with the Seattle Seahawks before. They're comfortable with him. He is right now more so of a speculative ad again because he's not the same type of tight end as Disley was. But favorably speaking, the Seahawks and Russell Wilson were looking at that position more so and more so as this season had progressed. I'd go ahead, add him. He's not really going to require a top waiver wire priority or a lot of fab money, but someone that you add after the fact and see how he progresses these next couple of weeks. Now getting to our defenses, we start with the 49ers, who this last week, tough matchup versus the LA Rams. Maybe some people went ahead, dropped him, expected that to be a high-scoring affair. If you kept him, good on you. If you dropped him, well, that means a lot more opportunities and possibilities for the rest of us out there because now in week 7, they face the Washington Redskins. And even though that offense looked good this last week, it was because they faced the Miami Dolphins, quite possibly the only team that is worse than them in the NFL. So that means this 49ers defense that has been stout all season long should quite possibly have its best outing of the year. Next, we've got the Buffalo Bills, who again, coming off the bye week, were probably dropped by a lot of owners, especially in leagues that stream defenses. But again, quite possibly no better matchup than facing the Miami Dolphins in Buffalo for the Bills, who their strength for that football team is that defense. They should absolutely go ahead and dominate Miami, who yet again had a quarterback change. We'll see if it's Ryan Fitzpatrick moving forward or Josh Rosen. It doesn't matter. The Buffalo Bills defense should absolutely eat in week 7. Next, we have got the New Orleans Saints, who in week 7 face the Chicago Bears. And this has all the makings of another low-scoring affair, Teddy Bridgewater versus the Bears defense. But more importantly, Mitch Trubisky or Chase Daniel under center, which means a sluggish offensive performance for the Bears, who just placed Kyle Long on the IR, which means that offensive line gets even worse. And the Saints defense went ahead and had a good outing versus the Jaguars. I think they can go ahead, do the same thing on the road versus a Bears team that has struggled incredibly all season long offensively. Our fourth and final defense is the Green Bay Packers, who in Week 7 will face the Oakland Raiders. And even though Oakland has had some nice games here and there, I fully expect this Green Bay defense at Lambeau to go ahead and have success versus the Raiders. I think Derek Carr will go ahead and contribute a couple of turnovers, and the Packers should go ahead, hold the Raiders to probably under 17, 18 points, and get you a couple sacks to go with it. So I think at the end of the day, they're probably going to be good for at least 10 points. So with that, we wrap up our look into our Week 7 waivers. And as always, if you guys have any questions, let me hear them in the comments. Did you agree, disagree with these names? Are there guys you would have liked to see included, along with any other fantasy questions you all might have? And as always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, but even more so, if you guys appreciate this content, check out the ADP Fantasy website. All your support would mean so much. Join the free newsletter, get exclusive content, check out what it means to be a member. All the details and more are in the description, so check those out now.